You know that feeling when you've done everything right, worked hard, stayed loyal, gave everything you had and still ended up with nothing? That's exactly where Sofia Bennett was. 31 years old, sitting in her car outside a grocery store doing the math in her head and realizing she couldn't afford both dinner and gas. Not because she was lazy, not because she made bad choices, but because life had taken everything from her in 1 year and hadn't apologized once. She didn't know that in 72 hours, the most powerful man in the city would know her name. And nothing, not for either of them, would ever be the same again. If this kind of story hits different for you, do us a favor right now, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We tell stories like this every single week and you don't want to miss what's coming. Now let's get into it. Sofia had a system. Most people who are barely holding on develop one. Hers went like this: pay the rent first, buy groceries second, ignore everything else and pray nothing breaks. She had been running that system for 11 months, ever since the hospital where she worked as a patient care coordinator eliminated her entire department in a single Friday afternoon email. No warning, no severance worth mentioning. Just a two-paragraph message that ended with the words, "We wish you all the best in your future endeavors," and a security escort to her car by Monday morning. Before that, she had a life that made sense. A small but clean apartment in Nashville, a job she was good at, and a plan, not a flashy one, just a real one. She was saving to go back to school, finish her healthcare administration degree, build something solid. She had a boyfriend named Ryan who told her she was the most grounded person he had ever met. He said it like it was a compliment. She found out later it just meant he felt safe taking advantage of someone who wouldn't explode. Ryan left 4 months after she lost her job. He didn't make a scene about it. He just slowly stopped showing up, stopped answering at full volume, stopped making plans. One morning she woke up and realized she hadn't actually seen him in 9 days and he hadn't noticed that she'd noticed. She ended it in a text. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was the part that hurt the most, not the leaving, but how easy it was for him. So there she was, 11 months later, doing rideshare, driving 3 days a week, picking up data entry contracts online, and watching her savings drain the way water drains from a bathtub with a slow leak, too gradual to panic about, but inevitable. She had a 5-year-old daughter named Chloe. She hadn't mentioned Chloe yet to anyone new in her life because Chloe was the one thing in it that was completely perfect, and she was protective of perfect things. Chloe had her mother's eyes and her own personality entirely: loud, hilarious, obsessed with dinosaurs, and completely unbothered by anything the world threw at her. Sofia looked at her daughter sometimes and genuinely could not figure out how something that good had come from a life that had gone this sideways. Chloe's father had been out of the picture since before she was born, his choice documented, final. Sofia had never chased him for anything, she had just put her head down and handled it. That was what Sofia did. She handled things, even when handling them was breaking her. That particular Tuesday, she had a rideshare shift starting at noon and a data entry deadline at 9 the next morning. She was tired in the specific way that sleep doesn't fix, the kind of tired that lives in your chest, not your eyes. But she got dressed, she braided Chloe's hair, she dropped her at the neighbor's place, and she got in her car. The first ride request of the day came in at 12:17 p.m. Pickup location, the Adelson Hotel, downtown Nashville, the kind of address that meant someone with money. She had no idea how right she was. Nathan Cole did not take rideshares. His director of operations, a sharp and perpetually exhausted woman named Patricia, had arranged a car service as she always did when Nathan was in Nashville for business. The car service had confirmed. The car service had then, 40 minutes before pickup, sent a message saying their vehicle had broken down and the replacement wouldn't arrive for 90 minutes. Patricia had called Nathan immediately. Nathan had said simply, "Find me something else," and hung up. Patricia, who had worked for Nathan Cole for 6 years and had handled situations considerably more complex than this, pulled up a rideshare app, booked the nearest available driver, and texted Nathan the details. Nathan Cole was 36 years old and the founder and CEO of Cole Capital, a private investment firm that had started in a 2-bedroom apartment in Atlanta 12 years ago and now managed assets across 4 countries. He had been on the cover of 2 business magazines, been called a disruptor by people who used that word too freely, and had built a reputation for being someone who saw things other people missed. Undervalued companies, overlooked markets, people who were performing below what they were actually worth. He was also, by his own quiet admission, not particularly good at being a person outside of work. Not in a dramatic way, he wasn't cruel, he wasn't broken in any visible sense, he was just contained. He had learned early that caring too openly about things made you vulnerable to losing them, and he had lost enough to respect that lesson. His father had died when Nathan was 24, 2 years after the company started. His younger brother Daniel had spent the last 3 years barely speaking to him over a business disagreement that had become a family wound neither of them knew how to close. He had an apartment in Atlanta, a house in Charleston he barely visited, and a schedule that left no room for anything that didn't have a purpose. He was standing outside the Adelson Hotel with a single carry-on bag and his phone in his hand when a silver Honda pulled up and the window came down. "Nathan," the driver said. He looked up. Sofia was looking at him the way people look at someone they're pretty sure they recognize but can't place. He got that sometimes, he didn't love it. "Yes," he said and got in. She didn't say anything for the first 4 minutes, neither did he. That was fine with both of them. Then her GPS rerouted because of an accident on the interstate and she said, without thinking about it, "I'm going to take surface streets, it'll add about 8 minutes, I'm sorry about that." "It's fine," he said. "There's water in the side pocket if you need it." He glanced at the little bottle wedged into the door. "Thank you." She nodded and kept driving. He looked out the window. Nashville moved past, the downtown murals, the construction cranes. The mix of old brick and new glass that cities get when money arrives faster than character can keep up. "Do you know the city well?" he asked. He wasn't sure why he asked. "Born and raised," she said. "Went away for college, came back, it's different now." "Better or worse?" She considered it honestly. "Depends on who you are in it." He looked at the back of her head. "That's a diplomatic answer." "It's an honest one," she said. He didn't respond, but something about the way she said it, not performing, not filling space, just saying what she actually thought, stayed with him for the rest of the drive. She pulled up to his destination. He got out. He was halfway to the door when he stopped, turned around, and came back to her window. "Thank you," he said, "for the route and the water." Sofia looked at him. "You're welcome." He walked inside. She sat there for a second longer than necessary. Then she pulled away and told herself to stop thinking about it. She failed at that for the rest of the afternoon. She didn't expect to see him again. She definitely didn't expect him to request her specifically the next morning through the app, which wasn't even a standard feature, but apparently if you knew how to call the right number and had enough patience, it could be arranged. Patricia had found a workaround. The request came through at 8 a.m., same pickup location. Sofia stared at her phone for a long moment, then she accepted it. He was waiting in the same spot, same bag. This time he looked like he hadn't slept well, not disheveled, just carrying something behind his eyes that hadn't been there the day before. He got in. "Good morning." "Morning," she said. "Same destination." "Different one." He gave her an address on the east side. She typed it in without a word. They rode in silence for a few minutes, then he said, "Can I ask you something?" "You can ask." "Yesterday you said it depends on who you are in the city. What did you mean?" Sofia glanced in the rearview. He was looking at her directly, not casually, like the answer actually mattered to him. "I meant that Nashville is a great city if you're doing well," she said. "The food is good, the energy is good, there's opportunity everywhere. But if you're struggling, it's gotten expensive and the gap between the people who are thriving and the people who are barely keeping up has gotten really wide. And those two groups are living side by side every day without actually seeing each other." Silence. "Which side are you on?" he asked. She kept her eyes on the road, the keeping up side working on crossing over. He nodded slowly. "How long have you been driving?" "About 11 months. "What did you do before?" "Health care administration. My department was eliminated." She said it cleanly, without bitterness, the way you say something you've had to say enough times that you've made peace with it. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded like he meant it, not politely but actually. "It happens," she said. "It shouldn't," he said, "not to people who are good at what they do." Sofia glanced in the mirror again. "You don't know if I was good at it." "No," he said, "but I have decent instincts about people." She almost smiled. "Almost. That's a very confident thing to say to someone you've known for 2 rides. "I know," he said. "I'm usually right though." This time she did smile. She couldn't help it. He requested her again the next day, and the day after that. By the end of the week it had become a strange, undefined thing that neither of them named. He talked to her on those drives the way she suspected he didn't talk to many people, directly, without performance. She found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud in months, about the job, about the degree she'd put on hold, about the plan she was rebuilding slowly and carefully because it was the only plan she had. She did not tell him about Chloe. Not because she was ashamed, she was the opposite of ashamed, but something told her that Chloe was a line that once she crossed it, this thing, whatever it was, became real, and real things could be taken away. She had learned that the hard way. On Friday evening he asked if she wanted to get coffee, not as a passenger, as himself. Sofia sat with the question for a long second. "That's not a typical passenger request," she said. "I'm aware. Nathan." "I know what I'm asking," he said. "And I know it's not conventional, but I've talked to you more this week than I've talked to most people in the last 6 months, and I don't think that's an accident." She looked at him in the mirror. He wasn't performing anything. He was just telling her the truth. "Coffee," she said. "That's it." "That's it," he agreed. It was not just coffee. It was 2.5 hours and a conversation that moved from her plans to his past to the kind of honest exchange that only happens when two people have both been through enough to stop wasting time on surface-level things. She drove home that night feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, something light, something dangerous. What Sofia didn't know was that Nathan Cole's life was considerably more complicated than a carry-on bag and a week of Nashville meetings. Back in Atlanta, his company was in the middle of a silent war. His uncle, a man named Gerald Cole, had been a minority stakeholder in Cole Capital since its early days. Gerald had never been involved in operations. He had put in money in the beginning and collected returns ever since. But 6 months ago, after Nathan's father's estate was finally settled, Gerald had inherited an additional share that tipped his holdings to a point where, legally, he had standing to challenge certain executive decisions. Gerald did not like the direction Nathan was taking the company. He felt it had grown too fast, spread too thin, and that Nathan's instinct-driven approach to investment was reckless. What he really felt, though he said it less often, was that he had waited a long time to have leverage over his late brother's son, and he intended to use it. Gerald's lawyer had been sending letters for 2 months. Nathan's legal team was handling it. What Nathan didn't know, what nobody had told him yet, was that Gerald had also hired a private investigator, not to look into the company, to look into Nathan personally, to find something that could be used. The investigator had been following Nathan for 3 weeks. He had photographed Sofia. Nathan came back to Nashville 10 days later. He told himself it was for a follow-up meeting with a local investment group. That was true. It was not the whole truth. He called Sofia before he landed. She picked up on the second ring. "I'm back in Nashville tonight," he said. "Are you free?" A pause. "Nathan. I know. I need to tell you something," she said, "before this goes any further. There's something you don't know about me." His voice was careful. "Okay. Not on the phone," she said, "in person." They met at a quiet restaurant on the east side, her choice, her neighborhood. She was already there when he arrived, sitting with her hands around a glass of water, looking like someone who had made a decision and was committed to it even though it scared her. He sat down. She looked at him directly. "I have a daughter," she said. "Her name is Chloe. She's 5. Her father hasn't been in the picture since before she was born, and that's not going to change. She's mine. She's the best thing in my life, and she comes with everything, which means if this is something, if you're thinking this is something, then you needed to know that before it became more." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "What's she like?" he asked. Sofia blinked. "What?" "Your daughter, what's she like?" Sofia stared at him, then something in her face shifted. The careful composure she'd been holding cracked open just slightly in the best possible way. "She's obsessed with dinosaurs," she said. "She's the loudest person I've ever met. She laughs at her own jokes before she finishes telling them." Nathan smiled, a real one, the kind that changed his whole face. "She sounds like a lot." "She's everything," Sofia said quietly. "Then she sounds like someone worth knowing," he said. Sofia looked at him across the table and felt something she hadn't let herself feel in so long that she had almost forgotten it existed. The feeling of being seen, completely, without the parts she'd hidden, without the careful version she showed the world and not watched leave because of it. 2 weeks later, Gerald Cole's investigator delivered his report. Gerald read it twice, then he called his lawyer, then he called Nathan. "I think we should meet," Gerald said. "There are some things about your personal life that have become relevant to our business discussions." Nathan's voice was flat. "Say what you mean, Gerald." The woman you've been spending time with in Nashville, Sofia Bennett. Did you know she filed a civil complaint 3 years ago against a former employer? Did you know she's been living below the poverty line for nearly a year? Did you know? Stop, Nathan said. Nathan, I'm trying to protect the companies. You're trying to find a weapon, Nathan said. And you found the wrong one. Sophia's circumstances are not a liability. They're none of your business. And if you put her name in any document, any filing, any conversation related to this company again, we will have a very different kind of discussion. Gerald was quiet. Are we done? Nathan asked. You're making a mistake, Gerald said. I've made mistakes before, Nathan said. This isn't one of them. He hung up. Then he sat in his office for a long time, not because of Gerald, but because of what Gerald had just made him realize, that somewhere between a rideshare pickup and a quiet restaurant on the east side of Nashville, Sofia Bennett had stopped being someone he was curious about and become someone he was not willing to let the world have access to without her permission. That was new, that was terrifying, that was real. He drove to Nashville that weekend. No meetings, no Patricia scheduling anything, just him and a 3-hour drive and something he needed to say in person. Sofia opened her door and looked at him. Behind her, from somewhere inside the apartment, came the sound of a cartoon and a small voice singing along to it badly and confidently. You drove here, she said. Yes. Nathan. I need to tell you something, he said. My uncle has been having me investigated. He found out about you. He tried to use you against me in a business dispute. He watched her face. I shut it down. Your name will not appear in anything related to my company. I made that clear, but you deserve to know it happened. Sofia leaned against the doorframe, processed it. So someone has been watching me. Yes, I'm sorry. That was because of my world, not yours, and you got pulled into it without choosing to be. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, Is it handled? Yes. Completely. Yes. She nodded slowly, then she stepped back from the door. Chloe, she called over her shoulder, come here for a second, bug. The cartoon sound paused. Small feet crossed the floor. A little girl appeared at Sofia's side, big eyes, dinosaur shirt, a crayon still in her hand, and looked up at Nathan with the completely unfiltered assessment that only 5-year-olds are capable of. Who are you? Chloe asked. Nathan crouched down to her level. I'm Nathan, I'm a friend of your mom's. Chloe looked at him for a long moment. Do you like dinosaurs? I don't know that much about them, he said honestly, but I'd like to learn. Chloe considered this seriously, then she grabbed his hand and pulled him inside. I'll teach you, she announced. Sofia stood in her doorway and watched Nathan Cole, a man who managed assets across 4 countries and never let anyone see him uncertain, get pulled into her living room by a 5-year-old in a dinosaur shirt. And she laughed. A real one, the kind that came from somewhere deep and unguarded. Nathan looked back at her from the couch, already holding a plastic triceratops, and the look on his face was something she had never seen from him before. He looked at home. Gerald Cole withdrew his challenge 4 months later. His legal team had determined correctly that Nathan's position was stronger than Gerald had been led to believe. Gerald had also quietly been informed that Nathan had documented every attempt at personal interference and was prepared to make that documentation public if necessary. Gerald decided the returns weren't worth the war. Nathan and Sofia did not rush anything. They built something slowly, the way people build things when they've both been burned by fast, carefully, honestly, with full knowledge of what they were each bringing and what they each needed. Sofia went back to school. Nathan didn't pay for it. She applied for a program grant, got it, and told him about it after the fact with a pride in her voice that he recognized immediately as the sound of someone who needed to do it herself. He understood that completely. He didn't say a word except congratulations. She appreciated that more than he knew. Chloe, for her part, had decided within 2 weeks that Nathan was acceptable. Her criteria were simple. He listened when she talked, he was honest when he didn't know something, and he had bought her an extremely accurate velociraptor figurine after she corrected him on a factual error about Cretaceous period timelines. Those were her terms. He had met them. One evening, about 7 months in, Nathan and Sofia were sitting on her couch after Chloe had gone to bed. The apartment was quiet. The city was doing its thing outside the window. Can I tell you something? He said. Yeah. I spent a long time building things because I didn't know what else to do with the feeling of losing them. My dad, my brother, the version of my life I thought I was going to have. He paused. I got very good at building and very bad at staying. Sophia looked at him. I don't want to be bad at staying anymore, he said. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, then don't be. Simple, direct, completely her. He looked at her, this woman who had been sitting in a parking lot doing impossible math 11 months ago, who had rebuilt herself from the floor up without asking anyone to carry her, who had a daughter who laughed at her own jokes and a plan she was executing one carefully saved dollar at a time, and he thought about how close he had come to never knowing any of it. One broken down car, one rerouted GPS, one moment of deciding to say something instead of nothing. Okay, he said, I won't. And he didn't. Some people come into your life through the most ordinary doors, a car ride, a wrong turn, a Tuesday afternoon that felt like nothing. And if you're paying attention and if you're brave enough to stay when it starts to feel real, those ordinary doors open into something that changes everything. Sofia Bennett had done everything right and still lost everything. And then, when she had nothing left to lose, she finally had room for something that was actually worth having. That's a wrap on this one. If this story hit you somewhere real, share it right now with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you're new here, you're welcome here. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because we tell stories like this every single week. We will see you in the next one.